A plasma bolt seared through Johnny Coleman's shoulder, the sizzling wound a stark reminder that even the most battle-hardened soldier was not invincible. Gritting his teeth, Johnny dove for cover behind a crumbling wall as Imperial forces rained down fire on the sabotage team's position. The mission to cripple the Empire's supply depot on the occupied Sulaban homeworld had gone sideways. But Johnny knew failure was not an option. Too much was at stake. As a member of the Traitorous Humans, a clandestine resistance group fighting against the ruthless expansion and subjugation of alien races by the human galactic empire, Johnny had seen firsthand the depths of his own species' cruelty. The once peaceful Sulaban were on the brink of extinction, their population decimated and their culture erased by the Empire's brutal occupation. Only the Traitorous Humans, those few who still respected the rights of sentient beings, were willing to stand against this injustice. Amidst the chaos of the firefight, Johnny locked eyes with Xander, a young Sulaban freedom fighter who had joined the sabotage mission. In that moment, Johnny saw the desperation and raw determination etched on Xander's face, a look he had seen all too often in the eyes of those whose worlds had been shattered by the Empire's iron grip. Xander's story, the plight of his people, had struck a chord deep within Johnny's soul, igniting a fierce resolve to help liberate the Sulaban from their oppressors. As the resistance team fought their way out of the supply depot, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake, Johnny knew that this was only the beginning. The Traitorous Humans needed to act fast, to gather vital intel on Imperial forces and launch a series of surgical strikes to free Sulaban prisoners and cripple the Empire's military infrastructure. It was a daunting task, one that would require sacrifice and unwavering determination, but Johnny was ready to risk everything, even his own life, to restore justice and freedom to the galaxy. For Johnny Coleman, there was no turning back. He had chosen his path, and now he would fight alongside the Traitorous Humans until the Sulaban were free or until his last breath. In a galaxy where his own kind had become the monsters, only the traitors could be the true heroes. As the Imperial shuttle touched down on the remote, uncharted moon, Johnny Coleman and Xander disembarked, their bodies still aching from the harrowing escape from the Sulaban homeworld. The hidden base of the Traitorous Humans materialized before them, a testament to the ingenuity and persistence of those who dared to defy the Empire's tyranny. Inside the base, Johnny and Xander were greeted by the resistance leaders, Mac Garner, a battle-scarred veteran with determined eyes, Liam Wu, a tech expert whose fingers danced across holographic interfaces, and Kai Tanaka, a master strategist with a mind as sharp as a laser blade. The room crackled with tension as Johnny passionately argued for a rescue mission to save the Sulaban from extinction. "We can't stand by and watch an entire species be wiped out," Johnny declared, his voice raw with emotion. "The Empire's cruelty knows no bounds. We have to act now." Xander stepped forward, his eyes haunted by the memories of his people's suffering. "I've seen firsthand the brutality inflicted upon my people," he said, his voice trembling. "Families torn apart, children orphaned, our culture erased. We need your help." The leaders exchanged glances, the weight of the decision heavy in the air. Mac's teeth clenched, his scars a reminder of the battles he had fought. Liam's fingers stilled, his mind racing with the possibilities. Kai's eyes narrowed, calculating the risks and rewards. Finally, Mac spoke, his voice gruff but resolute. "We'll do it. We'll infiltrate the Sulaban homeworld and save as many as we can, but it won't be easy." With the decision made, the base buzzed with activity. Mac assembled an elite team for the mission. Johnny, Xander, Liam, and Kai. They boarded a captured Imperial shuttle, its sleek lines belying the danger that awaited them. Using stolen codes, they slipped past the Empire's patrols, their hearts pounding with each passing moment. As the shuttle descended through the Sulaban homeworld's atmosphere, the team fell silent, awestruck by the devastation that greeted them. Once vibrant cities lay in ruins, their towering spires reduced to rubble. The landscape was scarred by the Empire's relentless bombardment, a testament to the depths of human cruelty. The team split into two groups, each with a critical mission. Johnny and Xander ventured into the heart of the occupied capital, their senses on high alert as they navigated the war-torn streets. They blended in with the local population, their training and wits their only defense against the ever-present Imperial forces. Liam and Kai, meanwhile, scouted potential allies among the scattered Suliban resistance cells. They moved through the shadows, their movements precise and deliberate, always one step ahead of the Empire's watchful eyes. In the heart of the capital, Johnny and Xander infiltrated a heavily guarded Imperial data hub. Xander's fingers flew across the interface, his brow furrowed in concentration as he hacked through the Empire's defenses. Johnny kept watch, his blaster at the ready, his senses attuned to the slightest hint of danger. As the data streamed across the screen, Johnny's heart sank. The Empire's plans for the Suliban were even more horrifying than they had imagined. The Suliban homeworld was to be a testing ground for a new superweapon, one capable of obliterating entire planets. The traitorous humans were no longer just fighting to save the Suliban. They were racing against time to prevent a genocide on an unimaginable scale. With the vital information in hand, Johnny and Xander regrouped with Liam and Kai at a secret Suliban resistance hideout. There they met Zara, Xander's older sister, and a brilliant tactician who had been orchestrating daring raids against Imperial targets. Her knowledge of the Empire's defenses was invaluable as the team devised a plan to free Suliban prisoners from the heavily fortified camps. As the traitorous humans and Suliban resistance fighters worked tirelessly to refine their rescue strategy, bonds of trust and camaraderie forged between them. Johnny found himself drawn to Zara's fierce perseverance and unwavering commitment to her people's freedom. In her, he saw a kindred spirit, someone who understood the price of standing up against injustice. The stage was set for a series of high-stakes operations that would test the limits of the team's courage and commitment. They knew the risks, knew that failure could mean the end of not just the Suliban, but countless other worlds. But they also knew that they were the galaxy's last hope, the only ones willing to stand against the Empire's tyranny. As the team prepared for their first strike against the Imperial prison camps, Johnny felt a sense of purpose surge through him. He looked around at the faces of his comrades, Xander, Liam, Kai, Zara, and the other resistance fighters, and saw the same dedication etched in their features. They were the traitorous humans, the ones who dared to defy their own species in the name of justice and freedom. And they would not rest until the Suliban were free and the Empire's reign of terror was brought to an end. The hidden base thrummed with activity as Johnny and his team prepared for their first strike against the Imperial prison camps. Weapons were checked, plans were memorized, and nervous energy crackled through the air. "Everyone clear on their roles?" Johnny asked, his eyes scanning the determined faces around him. Nods and affirmations echoed through the group. Xander stepped forward, his face set with grim drive. "Let's free our people." They boarded their stolen Imperial shuttle, its sleek lines belying its true purpose. As they approached the first camp, Johnny's heart raced. He adjusted his stolen Imperial uniform, the fabric rough against his skin. Approaching security checkpoint, Liam announced from the pilot's seat, "Transmitting forged clearance codes, now." 10 seconds ticked by as they waited for a response. Finally, a crackle came over the comm. "Clearance granted. Proceed to landing pad Alpha." Collective sighs of relief filled the shuttle. As they touched down, Johnny turned to his team. "Remember, quick and quiet. We're in and out before they know what hit them." They moved swiftly through the camp, their forged credentials granting them access to restricted areas. Johnny's fingers tightened around his concealed blaster as they approached the prisoner blocks. Xander nodded to a control panel. "There, that'll disable the cell locks." Liam's fingers danced across the interface, bypassing security protocols with practiced ease. A series of soft clicks echoed through the corridor as cell doors slid open. Confused faces peered out, hope warring with fear in their eyes. Zara stepped forward, speaking in rapid Suliban. "We're here to free you. Follow us quickly and quietly." As they led the prisoners to the waiting shuttles, alarms suddenly blared. Johnny's comm crackled to life. "Imperial reinforcements incoming." Kai's voice was tight with urgency. "Move!" Johnny shouted, herding the last of the prisoners onto the shuttles. Plasma bolts seared the air around them as they took off, Imperial fighters in hot pursuit. Liam's piloting skills were put to the test as he wove through the barrage of fire. "I can't shake them," Liam called out, his voice strained. Johnny gritted his teeth. "We didn't come this far to fail now." He manned the shuttle's defense systems, returning fire with precision born of desperation. As they broke atmosphere, Johnny allowed himself a moment of elation. They'd done it, the first successful raid against the Empire's iron grip. Back at the hidden base, Johnny watched as the freed Suliban were reunited with their families. Tears of joy and cries of relief filled the air. Xander approached, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Thank you," he said simply, clasping Johnny's shoulder. Johnny nodded, his throat tight with emotion. This is just the beginning. Over the next weeks, they launched a series of daring raids on other camps. Each successful mission swelled their ranks with grateful Suliban, eager to join the fight. During one such raid, Johnny found himself face-to-face with a distinguished-looking Suliban in the depths of a high-security cell block. "I am Valen," the prisoner said, his voice hoarse but dignified. "You must get me out of here. I have critical information about the Empire's plans." Johnny's pulse quickened. This could be the breakthrough they needed. As they made their escape, Valen's words chilled Johnny to the core. The Empire is building a weapon capable of destroying entire worlds, and they're using my people as test subjects. The revelation galvanized the resistance. They redoubled their efforts, targeting Imperial infrastructure with surgical precision. Weapons factories went up in flames. Supply depots were left in ruins. Liam's hacking skills proved invaluable as he wreaked havoc on Imperial communications. "They're scrambling," he reported with a grim smile. "Can't coordinate their responses." But their success came at a cost. Imperial forces, led by the ruthless Captain Krell, began closing in. The resistance was forced to constantly relocate, always one step ahead of capture. As Johnny and Zara pored over plans for their next mission, a transmission came through. Representatives from the Corva and Xanthians offering their support. "This is bigger than just the Suliban now," Zara said, her eyes alight with possibility. "We could unite the oppressed races against the Empire." Johnny nodded, hope and grit surging through him. It's time to take this fight to the next level. Level! Johnny's words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of their growing rebellion. The resistance base buzzed with activity as the combined forces of humans, Suliban, Corva, and Xanthians prepared for their most ambitious operation yet. Johnny stood before a holographic display of the Empire's top-secret facility, his eyes scanning every detail of the compound where the planet-destroying superweapon was being developed. "This is it," he said, addressing the diverse group of fighters gathered around him. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this mission." Zara stepped forward, her face set with tenacity. "We've run the simulations 100 times. The plan is solid." Johnny nodded, his gaze sweeping across the faces of his strike team. Xander, Mac, Liam, Kai, and the elite Corva and Xanthian fighters all stood ready, their expressions a mix of anticipation and determination. As they boarded their stealth shuttle, Johnny felt a familiar tightness in his chest. He pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. The shuttle slipped silently through space, its advanced cloaking technology rendering it invisible to Imperial sensors. They touched down on the outskirts of the facility, the team moving swiftly and silently across the barren landscape. Liam's fingers danced across his portable terminal, disabling security systems with practiced ease. "External defenses neutralized," he whispered. The team advanced, their movements fluid and coordinated. As they approached the outer perimeter, an Imperial patrol rounded the corner. In an instant, blaster fire erupted, filling the air with searing bolts of energy. Johnny dove for cover, his heart pounding as he returned fire. The acrid smell of ozone filled his nostrils as blaster bolts scorched the ground around him. Through the chaos, he saw Xander and a Corva fighter take down a pair of Imperial soldiers with deadly precision. "Move!" Johnny shouted, leading the charge towards the facility's entrance. Inside, the team split into two squads. Mac led his group towards the command center, while Johnny's team pushed deeper into the facility, fighting their way through waves of Imperial forces. As they battled through corridors and chambers, Johnny caught glimpses of the horrors within. Prisoners, Suliban and other alien species, were strapped to medical tables, their bodies bearing the marks of cruel experiments. Xander's sharp intake of breath cut through the din of battle. "Mother? Father?" His voice cracked as he recognized two familiar faces among the prisoners. Johnny's heart clenched at the raw emotion in Xander's voice. "We'll get them out," he promised, laying a hand on his friend's shoulder. They fought their way to the reactor core, the heart of the Empire's monstrous weapon. As Johnny's team worked to overload the containment matrix, the air crackled with tension. Suddenly, a cold voice cut through the room. "Well, well, what have we here?" Johnny spun to see Captain Krell, his face twisted in a cruel smile, flanked by a squad of elite Imperial troops. "Zara, now!" Johnny shouted. In a blur of motion, Zara launched herself at Krell, her vibroblade clashing against his energy sword in a shower of sparks. The two warriors danced a deadly duel, their movements almost too fast to follow. Johnny turned back to the reactor controls, his fingers flying across the interface. Alarms blared as the containment field began to destabilize. "It's done!" he called out. "We need to move!" As the team retreated, Johnny saw Zara still locked in combat with Krell. Without hesitation, he shoved her into a nearby blast-proof chamber, sealing the door behind her. "Johnny, no!" Zara's muffled cry reached him as the reactor's glow intensified. He met her eyes through the chamber's viewport, a sad smile on his face. "Take care of them," he said softly. The world erupted in blinding light and searing heat. Johnny's last thought was of the friends he'd made, the cause he'd given everything for, and the hope that his sacrifice would make a difference. Outside the facility, Mac's team watched in horror as the explosion tore through the compound. Their shock was short-lived as the sky filled with Imperial ships, High Commander Zorn's armada descending upon them. "We've got to move!" Mac barked, herding the liberated prisoners towards their escape vehicles. As they fled, Mac activated the hidden explosives they'd planted throughout the facility. Behind them, the Empire's superweapon project crumbled into ruin. Zorn's retaliation was swift and merciless. The sky lit up with the fire of orbital bombardment, entire cities reduced to ash in moments. Aboard the lead evacuation ship, Zara stared out at the destruction of her homeworld, her hands pressed against the viewport. Tears streamed down her face as she mourned for Johnny and for her people. Valen approached, his voice steady despite the pain in his eyes. "We must lead our people to safety," he said. "There is a colony world where we can regroup and rebuild." Zara nodded, steeling herself. She turned to face the gathered refugees, Suliban, humans, and their alien allies. "Today we lost our home," she said, her voice carrying across the ship's hold. "But we have not lost hope. We will find a new haven, and from there, we will continue to fight." As their fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the burning remains of the Suliban homeworld, Zara silently vowed to honor Johnny's sacrifice. The Empire had won this battle, but the war was just getting started. The resistance would grow stronger, uniting more species against their common oppressor. On the bridge of the lead ship, Xander stood beside Zara, his parents safe in the medical bay below. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his eyes reflecting the same mix of grief and dedication. "Where do we go from here?" he asked softly. Zara's gaze remained fixed on the swirling vortex of hyperspace before them. "We find a new home," she said. We gather our strength, and then we take the fight back to the Empire." "Empire! And then we take the fight back to the—" Zara's words were cut short as the ship lurched, dropping out of hyperspace. Through the view screen, a verdant world materialized. Sanctuary, their new refuge. As the fleet descended, the stark reality of their situation set in. Makeshift shelters sprouted across the landscape, a patchwork of survival against the alien terrain. Zara stood at the center of it all, her eyes scanning the throngs of displaced Suliban, humans, and their allies. "Welcome to New Haven," she announced, her voice carrying over the murmur of the crowd. "It's not much, but it's ours." Weeks passed in a blur of frenetic activity. Mac oversaw the construction of defensive perimeters, while Liam worked tirelessly to establish secure communication networks. Kai drilled mixed squads of Suliban and human fighters, forging them into a cohesive unit. Zara found herself thrust into the role of leader, a mantle she wore uneasily. Late one night, she stood at the edge of the settlement, staring up at unfamiliar stars. "I miss him too," Xander's voice came from behind her. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Johnny would be proud of what we've built here." Zara nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Their moment of reflection was interrupted by a commotion at the perimeter. A battered freighter limped into view, its hull scored with plasma burns. "Araxians," Liam reported, his eyes widening as he scanned the newcomers. "And they're not alone." Over the following days, a steady stream of ships arrived, each bearing refugees from worlds oppressed by the Empire. The Vikari, their faces etched with the lines of countless battles, offered their martial prowess. The Araxians brought esoteric technologies that boggled even Liam's mind. As New Haven swelled with each new arrival, so too did the Empire's willpower to crush them. The Resistance Council gathered in a hastily constructed war room, faces grim as they pored over intelligence reports. "Zorn's amassing a fleet," Max said, his voice tight. "He means to wipe us out before we can pose a real threat." Heated debate erupted. Some argued for dispersal, to fade into the shadows and wage a guerrilla war. Others, Zara among them, pushed for a more audacious strategy. "We have something Zorn doesn't," she said, her eyes blazing. "Unity. It's time we showed the Empire what that really means." In the days that followed, New Haven transformed. Liam and the Araxians wove an intricate web of cloaked mines and autonomous drones around the planet. Kai worked with the Vikari to integrate their battle tactics into the Resistance's defensive plans. When Zorn's armada emerged from hyperspace, they found not a ragtag group of refugees, but a unified force ready to meet them head-on. The battle erupted in a cacophony of weapons fire and explosions. Liam's drones swarmed Imperial fighters, while cloaked mines detonated among the larger ships. On the ground, Vikari warriors led lightning raids against Imperial landing parties. Zara stood on the bridge of a commandeered Imperial shuttle, Kai at her side. "Now," she ordered, and their small task force surged toward Zorn's flagship. They fought their way through corridors awash in emergency lighting, the ship shuddering around them as the battle raged outside. Finally, they breached the bridge. High Commander Zorn stood before them, his face twisted in a sneer. "You think this changes anything?" he spat. "The Empire will crush you like the insects you are." Zara met his gaze, unflinching. "You're wrong, Zorn. We've already won." As if on cue, the ship's systems flickered, then came fully under Araxian control. Outside, Liam's drones tightened their net around the remaining Imperial forces. Zorn's face paled as the full magnitude of his defeat sank in. With trembling hands, he surrendered his command codes. In the aftermath, as the Resistance tended to their wounded and counted their victories, Zara found herself once again staring at the stars. This time, hope burned bright within her. "We did it, Johnny," she whispered, "but there's still so much left to do."
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.